So we have some news in the banking sector. First Caribbean International Bank is no longer gonna be known as First Caribbean International Bank. They're rebranding to their parent company, CIBC. Tell me, why was that decision made?
Well, it's more likely to, just strengthen and align the branding of the bank because in context, when you think about it, we have two major Canadian banks, in the region, dominantly being Scotiabank and First Caribbean. However, whereas Scotiabank, retains that brand identity and image along with the trade name down in the rest of the region, CIBC took a little bit of a different step, whereas, they actually just, had a different established identity down here. So while you might see CIBC First Caribbean on the imaging and branding, you would still see First Caribbean as the legal name. So, when you hear Scotiabank, you hear Scotiabank Jamaica, Scotiabank Trinidad, and so forth. So just align that image, kind of makes it a little bit easier to further build out a presence in the region while leveraging the identity that exists already in Canada. And it kind of makes sense when you think about the fact that they would have established its identity here in the region, tried to execute a sale of, well, CIBC that tried to execute a sale, the majority ownership a couple of years ago. And, regulators rejected that. And, they tried to sell through to their four territories. Then you get through Dominica, and I'm trying to remember if they got through St. Kitts, but, they closed Dominica and they're just continuing forward. I believe they got the St. Vincent and Aruba sales through, and now they're actually planning to fully exit Dutch Caribbean. So they're planning to sell their Bonaire and Curacao operations to Orsha Bank. I don't know how to pronounce that C. I don't know Dutch. So these are some of the moves and developments that have happened with First Caribbean and, well, it's just CIBC, in the Caribbean. And the results always come out by, early December. And they're planning to further build their presence out in Jamaica, which is, that economic ATM for the Caribbean, in a sense. Because I'm pretty sure you've been following the developments on Twitter regarding Trinidad Kalila.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the BOJ.
The data breach at TSTT?
No, not that one, Kalila. Not that one. I'm talking about the BOJ and the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago no longer allowing that exchange,
Oh,
for
yes, I did
repatriation.
see that. I saw that press release. Yeah, so you can't send back your TT dollars through BOJ.
Basically, and then the BOJ came out with an update yesterday where they said it wasn't something that they initiated on their side. The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago was, the other party that started this temporary halt of, moving TT back from Jamaica to Trinidad. Because one was supposed to realize is that while persons love to say, hey, Trinidad dollar, is stronger relative to the United States dollar, in Trinidad, to get USD is kind of like trying to get water in a desert. It is that difficult. So, what do I mean by that? If you are a business in Trinidad, it's up to the central bank to decide, if they are going to let you get the amount of FX that you want and then the quantities that you actually do want. So some persons, well, before this year, could take as much as 6 months just to get USD through your regular bank or even through, the central bank. Whereas here in Jamaica, we can literally take a per card and just spend on Amazon, spend on wherever. We don't, have these kind of restrictions that one would see in Trinidad. So, this latest move, by, well, in this case, Trinidad the regulator and the central bank, is going to just put a little more pressure on, the business persons out in Trinidad because I spoke to someone recently that said that they spoke to some persons down there and whereas they could used to get euros and Canadian dollars to then exchange into United States dollars, that's even harder to get now. So it's a pretty dynamic situation down there.
Interesting. On the FCIB rebranding, Christopher says FCIB has rebranded so many times. First it was CIBC, then First Caribbean CIBC, then FCIB, now reverting back to CIBC. I remember when it used to be Barclays Bank. Like, I'm kind of old, so.
Nah, you're not old, Kalila. You're just older.
Older millennial, yeah. Yeah, so Ryan also said that First Caribbean was because Barclays had an investment in CIBC Caribbean but pulled out 6 years ago. So,
And one thing to point out in Kalila, First Caribbean is the only Canadian bank that has struggled to actually realize any of their exits in the Caribbean. So we'd have seen a couple of years ago, actually in 2019, where Scotiabank would have sold most of their Eastern Caribbean operations, not Trinidad and Tobago, but other Eastern Caribbean islands, to Republic Bank. They'd have sold their Belizean operations to another Belizean entity there. They tried to sell Guyana, that didn't go through. They bought a stake in Domrep. We saw RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, which was known as RBTT in Trinidad, and was known as RBTT here in Jamaica as well. They exited the Caribbean, but First Caribbean, or I should say, CIBC in turn, is not having such ease to actually exit the Caribbean. So, to be honest, this rebranding now back to the parent company just kind of makes sense. I'm saying that they've tried to do IPO, tried to sell majority interest to a Colombian financial group, and tried to even sell some of these different subsidiaries, and it's just been a very difficult process.